There are some who say DC cannot be unified. The Nationals have unified DC. We are here today for our love of each other as National fans, as well as in the name of this great game of baseball, to crown the new World Series champions, the Washington Nationals. This is from Bob Carpenter, who is the voice of the Washington Nationals and does all the play-by-play for all their games. In your responses to my surveys, you described baseball as boring, slow, and just not fun to watch or be part of. And that is counterintuitive to the way that America views of our national pastime. So my goal of this speech is that not that you would love baseball, not that you would want to play baseball or go to baseball games, but the goal of my speech is to give you a newfound respect and persuade you that you should care about baseball because it's a national pastime. First, we're going to talk about what a national pastime is, and then we're going to go talk about how baseball reflects the national pastime. So what is a national pastime? In your survey responses to me, you defined it as something that the nation can actively enjoy or are engaged in that is a leisure activity. I love this definition, and I'm going to roll with this definition. I think you guys nailed it completely right when describing a national pastime. We're going to look at what to do because of that. So what should a national pastime be? We're going to start by talking about what is one goal of what a national pastime should do. A national pastime should unify the country. As a nation, we are very divided politically. A Wall Street Journal poll recently came out saying that the nation agrees about one thing, and that is that we're politically divided and we are not unified. That's the poll behind me. This is from a guy named Cheney posted the poll. 80% of a nation that splits about 50-50 on most topics agrees about the disunity. And this is a scary thing to think about. Like, we're not unified as a country. What can we do to fix this? I think sports is the actual answer to how to unify our country. The idea of hard work and competitive nature does bring people together. I've seen that in my own teams, and I've seen that on the teams that I like to watch. So, secondly, what else should a national pastime be able to do? A national pastime should entertain. In the 2000s, the Department of Labor and Statistics posted a poll to the people that are under 35 in our nation, asking them how much money they spend on entertainment each year. The response in the 2000s was $1,435. That included going out to eat with friends, television, and phone reception services. How much do you think that has changed in the last 20 years? This is well before the new iPhones or Spotify or Netflix. So, also we see that we care about baseball, or we care about sports because of our national spending. We care about entertainment that way too. $56 billion are spent annually on admissions to games and food at games and sporting events. As Americans, we really like to be entertained, and sporting events and other events like sporting events are a huge way that we're able to become entertained. We see that in the amount of professional sports teams we have. The MLS, the NBA, the WNBA, the PGA, the LPGA, NLL, we have MLB, to just name a few. NASCAR, maybe, I don't know, you decide. Understanding what a national pastime is, we're able to understand that a national pastime should unify and should entertain. We're now able to put on the lens of that as we look at how baseball lines up against those ideas. We're first going to look at if baseball is how baseball looks nationally, and then we're going to focus on how baseball is a pastime. We're going to break the words apart. So, how is baseball national? Cultural theorist Pierre Boudère, his picture is behind me, and kind of scary, but not gonna lie, believes all sports connect to class and gender variations, which is a strange term. He believes that that there are rich sports and poor sports and sports for men and sports for women to enjoy, and there's a complete fracturing of all sports. But Leonardo de Cassoto, in his book, The Cambridge Companion to Baseball, says this: "It is striking how how baseball It's striking how poorly baseball fits into Baudelaire's model for the game tends to collapse such as sex and gender distinctions. He later goes on to say, baseball tends to have more female fans than other male sports. Male stereotypes go from maybe loud beer drinking fan to highbrow intellectual who's just taking stats of the game. In education, we call this social and cultural capital. The idea that people are able to exchange money, currency, to be able to relate to one another and have conversations with each other. And if you've been to maybe a Chicago Cubs game, you're able to see it. So you're able to see the guys out in center field just trying to stack beer cups in front of the person in front of them. Or you're able to look behind home plate and see all the people with pens and paper writing down all the stats for the games. It's also national because religious Christians like to talk about baseball as if it was a religion or reflects Christianity in the modern world. Tom Lynn, in his book Nation's Pastimes, referring to baseball and religion, says this: further, the book assents that baseball, like religion, contains a communal force that assembles family, friends, and strangers as one congregation. Again, he goes on talking about how people at a game might be ranging in devotion, like the hardcore fans versus people there just for the afternoon, just like in church. But they are united by the fact that they love their team and they love their city. That's how baseball unifies. Quickly, we're just talking about how baseball is popular. 73.1 million people went to a major league game last season. That does not include the whole minor league and farm system in the United States. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Also, the MLB made $7.8 million last year. So, understanding that baseball unifies, that baseball is popular, and Christians has kind of taken advantage of that and made it their own. Let's now look at how baseball is a pastime. The National League, as we know it, was created in 1876 and has been played long before that in colonial America. It started with variations of a stick and ball and has continued into the game we know today. A little bit of reference, the NBA was 1966 and the NFL was 1920 was when their first league games were played. A big reason why it's a pastime is that baseball hasn't changed in almost over 200 years. This is from Mitchell in his book, Will Big League Baseball Survive? It says this: field dimensions, the 90 foot between bases, 60 feet and 6 inches from home plate to the pitcher's mound, have all remained the same for centuries. Baseball hasn't changed. There's someone watching in 1920 when Babe Ruth was playing would recognize the game even when Ken Griffey Jr. or even when the Cubs might have won their World Series and understood the significance behind that. Baseball's a pastime because it's adapted. They fought race relations and broke the color barrier with Jackie Robinson. Mitchell goes on later in his book to say, had the MLB insisted in remaining all white, pushing away Spanish speakers, it would have lost its structure and credibility 60 years ago. The idea that baseball's willingness to adapt has made it to become a national pastime because it reflects the adaptation of our culture, how we fixed and how we're still trying to fix race relations or cultural differences. Baseball has shown its willingness to adapt, and in that sense, does reflect American time. It captures audiences year in and year out, whether that be through great players or through movies. We see baseball on the big screen all the time. And lastly, if you've ever been to a ballpark, you know that baseball passes time. You go in thinking you're going to be there for a couple hours to watch a game, and you walk out 4 hours later not knowing what happened and really full on good food. Understanding that a national pastime should unify and should entertain, we are now able to see why baseball is the national pastime. Not because it's the most popular sport in the age right now, but that it has the history and it's done its work to adapt to the American culture and reflect the time that we're in right now. Now go and play some ball.